Welcome to Energy Frontier, the Wyoming Landscape Podcast. Hosted by Dr. Holly Krutka, Executive Director of the School of Energy Resources at the University of Wyoming. The show highlights SER's role supporting our mission to promote energy-driven economic development for the state of Wyoming.
Tell me your name, and let's start by having you tell our listeners about your background and how did you come to work here at the School of Energy Resources?
So my name is Trina Igelsrud Pfeiffer. The Igelsrud is my maiden name, and I do that because I honor my parents, or my dad, and my grandfather. So I first came to the School of Energy Resources in 2017. And I heard about the coal to products work through someone that I had known throughout industry, John Myers, who came here to Wyoming, and he became a professor in the chemical engineering department. So Richard Horner, who was the predecessor, who was the director of the center that I run right now, he was the previous director. He was starting this program called the Carbon Engineering Initiative. And he wanted several people from industry to come in and help them vet some of the different processes and ideas. So he got a hold of John, and John came in and did some modeling and some industry work for him. And the program started growing, so he needed somebody else, and he knew I lived down in Denver. And so he called me, and I thought, yeah, this will be great. So that's the connection with me coming up here. I was a consultant then in 2017, and then in 2022 I became an employee, and then later on in 2022 Richard stepped away from the directorship and I became the director, and so here I am.
And you're a chemical engineer by training.
And yes, I am a bachelor's and master's degree chemical engineer from the Colorado School of Mines.
And has anyone, to your knowledge, ever run a program like the one you're leading now?
Not to my knowledge. And that's one of the reasons I'm real excited about this, because it's kind of novel, and it's something new, and it's exciting, and I feel like our team can really make a difference.
Yeah,
so
I agree with you. So for those familiar with the School of Energy Resources and our research program, they know we're divided up into centers of excellence, and you lead one of those centers, and you reference that. Tell us about the center you lead, the name, and the role it plays at SER.
Okay, so I lead the Center for Carbon Capture and Conversion, and what we do, the big program under that center at this point is the Carbon Engineering Initiative, which is our coal to products work. There are other things that we are working on, carbon capture processes and other ways of recycling like wind turbine blades and things like that. But our big research right now, our big area of focus is the Carbon Engineering Initiative.
And a term we use to talk about some of the things happening in the Carbon Engineering Initiative is a coal refinery. So can you tell me what is meant by that term, coal refinery?
Right. So the coal refinery idea started with Richard Horner and John Myers and several other people prior to me coming on the scene. And what their idea was to take, like if you look at a petroleum refinery, it's made up of several different processes. And so take that idea, and instead of having the feedstock be crude oil, it would be coal. So what we did was we thought, well, okay, what processes do we want? What do we want to make with all of the intermediate products we would make? Those kinds of things. And after a few years of doing some research and understanding, we came up with a couple of different things. We're going to have a pyrolysis unit, a fast pyrolysis unit, and then also a solvent extraction unit. And each one of those take the coal in and process it, and we have intermediate products that come out. One of the products is coal char, which is the pyrolysis piece of this, and then the other one is coal extract, which is the solvent extraction piece of it. Anyway, so those are the two intermediate products. And then we have downstream products that are made from those intermediate products, just like a refinery would.
So the intermediate products are essentially feedstocks for these new products from coal.
Correct. They are. And the gas that is, a lot of people are concerned about, well, what are you going to do with the gas? And what we're trying to do is come up with different ways to have the coal refinery be net carbon zero. And we have a couple of ideas in play right now. One is using algae to actually eat the CO2 and then grows the algae, and then we take that and put it on a product that I'll talk about later. That's one of the downstream products that we have as a soil amendment. So we're basically looking at using all parts of the coal, and then also making sure that we stay green.
Yeah, and it's important to be green because as we move toward commercialization, we have to compete in the market. We're already having a hard time getting coal-related projects funded at the federal level, so we want to make sure our products have every advantage. Is that fair?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's true. That's very true.
So Trina, tell me about the goals you have for the Center for Carbon Capture and Conversion.
Okay, we have short-term goals and long-term goals. The short-term goal is to commercialize our coal refinery processes and also make sure that we can penetrate the markets for our downstream products. And those are the two short-term goals. Longer term, we are looking at developing a extraction and separation method or methods to help with rare earth element and critical minerals extraction. That's a project that we have with the Keger Group, which is another center of excellence within SER, and we're kind of collaborating with them.
So we call it Keger, but it stands for the Center for Economic Geology Research.
Sorry. Yes, it does. And we actually don't really go by the Center for Carbon Capture and Conversion. We call ourselves C4.
Or the 4 Cs.
Or the 4 Cs. So yeah, there you go. Another long-term goal we have is also looking at creating new technologies to help recycle wind turbine blades and plastic as well, using some of the processes that we're doing now. So we have that. And then also look at newly innovative carbon capture technology that can maybe help keep some of these coal-fired power plants open.
Sure. Thinking about what you just said about your goals for your team, you have the near-term goals, which are incredibly ambitious, and then you're planning for the future as well. Here at the School of Energy Resources, our overall goal is to promote energy-driven economic development for Wyoming. And there's a lot of different things that can mean for us. It's primarily like, what can we do here at the University of Wyoming, the state's only four-year research institution, only university, to use our incredible energy and mineral wealth to benefit the state in the long term, including driving incremental revenue. There's other researchers at other universities looking at coal to products, but it's different than what you're doing. And I also say there are huge projects that are commercial projects in China and South Africa that do convert coal into fuels. And what you're doing is different from that also. Can you talk about the scale of the work you're doing and why you're focused on really large scale volumes for your end products?
Right. So the original idea of the coal refinery was to try to do everything. It was to try to do high volume uses of coal and high value uses of coal. That was the original idea. And some of the processing that we came to in the research basically came out that we are using Powder River Basin coal, and the coal kind of told us that, hey, if you want to use Powder River Basin coal for high value products, that's not really a focus that we are going to be good for. Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to find different solvents that we would use, one for high value and one for high volume, and make it more complicated, we decided to go with high volume. And the reason that we decided to do that was because we could sell more coal. And that was the focus. And as far as economic driven economies, and for Wyoming, that's one of the things that we want to do, is try to sell as much coal as we can.
Right. We have the biggest mines in the world. Yes. In Wyoming. We have coal seams that are 50 feet thick and without a lot of other impurities in them. They're very low ash, low sulfur. But if we want to make a difference for Wyoming coal mines, we do have to look at that larger scale.
Correct. And that's the reason, another reason why we focused on that. So the downstream products that we have, the three that we have decided on for volume only, there are three of them. One of them is a coal-derived asphalt. Mm-hmm. Another one is a building materials that we use the coal char for. And then the last one is soil amendment. Those are the three large areas of research that we're looking at right now. Solvent extraction, for example, makes a coal extract, and we use that extract to make the binder that you then use to make the asphalt. So that's where that tie-in is. And it turns out that the asphalt binder that we make out of our coal-derived extract is actually more green than the petroleum counterpart. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing as far as being more green and being more economical, I think is a very positive thing.
So when you say green, let's talk about that, because I think it has some health advantages, right? Because our coal is so low sulfur, it doesn't have some of the compounds that are released. The other thing is it has a lower total greenhouse gas footprint.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. The CO2 emissions from a petroleum asphalt are a lot higher, 5 times higher than our coal-derived asphalt.
I think the other thing is important for people to know, because we support all of Wyoming's mineral wealth. This is not a competition. So one of the challenges with asphalt binder in particular, especially in the U.S., is that demand is increasing, but the feedstock for conventional asphalt binder is from refineries, and refinery capacity isn't increasing. It's actually declined a bit. And so we have a feedstock gap for asphalt, and that's why we've seen increasing prices. So I think YDOT paid over $900 a ton.
It was $1,189 a ton
last year. Wow, that's incredible.
Yep. So to date, 25 million tons of asphalt is sold in the United States per year. The market is growing about 3.6% per year. So if we can penetrate just 10% of the market in the U.S., then we could use about 3 million tons of coal to produce 2.5 million tons of binder.
So that's equal to one decently sized power plant in terms of replacing our coal, our revenue and our jobs and our economic development. And it's an international market too. So
yes, it is.
We think it could be higher.
It could be a lot higher. This is probably conservative.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that's just one of the 3 high volume products that we have.
So let's talk about some of the other products. So one of the other ones is the soil amendment. So
soil amendment.
Just talk a little bit about that. What's the goal there?
Okay, so the soil amendment, we're in the 3rd year of the field trials. One of the fields is up north near Powell, and the other one is down south near Torrington. So 2 different types of soils. And we have found that the soil amendment, which is the coal char, and then some of it we're mixing in with this algae I was talking about earlier, basically helps with the nitrogen runoff and does help with water retention. So it's really turning out to be quite a nice surprise for us. We are also using the soil amendment for reclamation work. We have a project with Peabody where we're doing some reclamation work on one of their mine sites. So we've looked at different data for just the surrounding states, and the amount of soil amendment that we could produce is I don't know a number, Holly.
That's okay. We don't have a number on the amount of the soil amendment that could be used because it's truly a new product.
Right, and we don't know the depth, like how much you would put on for each different. We're doing that right now. Some of it is 4 inches, some of it is 6 inches, some of it is 2 inches. We're just trying to figure out how much. So it's hard for me to say. We just know that it's going to be a high volume product.
Which we know is going to be in the millions of tons per year if we are successful in marketing this. I mean, we kind of have started looking at both just in Wyoming, and even that alone, Wyoming and the region is in the millions of tons. So
that's correct.
So Trina, let's talk a little bit about the building materials and tell me about the goal with that program and what's the most promising in that field of the research.
Okay. The building materials, the biggest product we're working on are the bricks.
Maybe the most well-known.
Most well-known. Actually true. That's true, the bricks. We have a brick house over by the high bay, one of the buildings here on campus, that is built with the char bricks, and then right next to it is a clay brick house, and we've been monitoring those for a year, and we've had very good results. One of the things that, a lot of people ask, do the bricks catch on fire? The bricks are Class A fire rating. Meaning that they don't catch on fire.
They don't catch on fire.
And as a matter of fact, they have a higher rating than a lot of the regular bricks do. So that was surprising. They also are so Wyoming has a very interesting climate in that it gets really, really cold in the winter and really, really warm in the summer.
Well, it's not really warm.
Well, no, not really warm. But what the bricks do is it basically keeps the inside, this is with no insulation, by the way, in the house. The bricks keep the inside of the house warmer in the winter and a little cooler in the summer. So that's kind of a neat, just added thing other than with the bricks. Another thing that we have a, I guess you could call it a concrete additive, where we're taking graphene oxide and putting it into concrete. And what happens with that is it increases the concrete strength by 27%. So that's another thing that was quite a surprise for us. There's carbon foam we're working on. There's also a carbon structural unit, which is much lighter than concrete is, and it actually is a little stronger than concrete. So there's a lot of different things that we're doing in that space.
And I think the long-term goal was to try to build a whole house. And by a house, if you come see our little coal char brick houses, it's more of a shed. But they're very cute and they're beautiful, and they remind me of my first house that I ever purchased with those 1960 kind of gray bricks. But the goal would be to build almost the whole house out of coal-derived products, and I think the windows could be made out of at least partly Wyoming Trona, so
maybe,
we could have,
yes.
That would be great. So
that
all different things. I think one of the other benefits of the house that we're hoping, we made it portable, right?
Yes.
Would be maybe to try to change the perception around coal a little bit. Maybe drive it around the state. We have lots of visitors here in Laramie, but to try to get people to think about coal a little differently.
I agree. That's one of my goals. One of the things that I am kind of passionate about is trying to educate people on the fact that, you don't have to just burn coal. You can do some other things with it. And instead of keeping it in the ground, this is a really useful natural resource that we can use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about these high volume products, but Wyoming coal is a prolific natural resource. And while we are focused on high volume to support the coal mining industry here in Wyoming, we also are looking at some products that could be related or produced from Wyoming coal or coal-derived products that have national security implications. So one that we're not going to focus on today is rare earths and critical minerals, that we have another group running a really large program looking at rare earths and critical minerals associated with our coal seams in Wyoming, or our coal basins. Another focus in the last legislative session was producing graphite from coal, and actually high purity graphite that might be useful for batteries or some nuclear reactors require graphite. So give us a little update on that project and how it's going.
Okay, so that project we started in July of 2023, and currently we have done a few experiments to try to see if we can even make graphite out of coal, and it turns out we can. And so we're putting some other processes together and some other research things together in order to be able to further that development. So that's what we're working on. But we did prove that we could do it. So that's really huge.
Step one.
Step one. Yes.
Can you do it?
Yes. Can we do it? And the answer is yes.
So with those high volume products and the graphite that you talked about, I think your center has this really interesting and important perspective and really has demonstrated high execution of innovation approaches that reflect why the School of Energy Resources was even stood up in the first place. We were put here at the University of Wyoming really to leverage the incredible folks, the tenure track faculty, researchers, and also to train students here at the University of Wyoming to focus on Wyoming's most important energy issues. And so you work really closely with faculty and staff at the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences and the College of Agriculture, Life Sciences, and Natural Resources. And they're helping you with this innovation. And they're doing all kinds of work across campus. You also work with Western Research Institute, but you also have a focus on commercialization of all this work. We're not just doing research for the sake of research. So can you talk about that model and how it's working and how you've been able to achieve really, truly, if you think about how far this program has come in about 7 years, it's incredible. From an idea to building demonstrations in Campbell County. So talk about how the innovation works for you and how you approach working with all these different groups.
Yes, right. So it was set up originally where when they started, they were given an edict from the state to come up with, hey, what are we going to do with the...
We were given an edict.
Yeah, SER was. Sorry, yeah, SER was. About what we can do with coal other than burning it. What could we do? And so that's where the Carbon Engineering Initiative was born. And so what happened was SER went out and basically put the word out to get proposals in from anywhere on campus of someone that might have an idea on what you could do with coal. And Western Research Institute was part of that, and they're the ones that are actually working on the asphalt work with us. And so there were lots and lots and lots of people that came in and had lots of different ideas. And so we had to whittle it down to what we thought was going to be economical. Some projects didn't move on because of the economics, and some projects didn't move on because their idea wasn't going to work out. But what we did was we funded the PIs, and then they were principal investigator is a PI. And then what they were able to do is hire graduate students and postdocs in order to be able to do the research. And we're continuing that model now. So that's the way we have been able to help a lot of the different people in the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences and the College of Ag as well. So it's worked out really well. We've actually hired a few of the students that have graduated into our program because they wanted to continue the work with the coal. So it's been actually a win-win, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. I love that the School of Energy Resources, we have opportunities to essentially interview students for 3 years to 4 years as they complete their graduate degrees. And then sometimes we like to hire them.
Yep.
To continue the work.
Yep, and two of the people that we hired just recently are not only they're working on our two part of the refinery processes, the solvent extraction and pyrolysis, and we're actually looking at the commercialization of those two processes. So yeah.
And part of the commercialization is we have to demonstrate these at a larger scale than we have. So we have pilots running on campus now where we're really understanding the technology, but we want to do a demonstration. So how important is it to have a host site, for example, like the Wyoming Innovation Center?
Okay, so what we've done is we have done bench scale, and then we've done pilot scale, just as you have said, and then we're building a field demonstration plant for the pyrolysis unit up in Gillette at the Wyoming Innovation Center. And the Wyoming Innovation Center was built to provide a spot for people to do exactly what we're trying to do, demonstrate technology. And so that's one of the things, it's been a really nice relationship with them to be able to put this plant there and hopefully the solvent extraction plant there too, in order to be able to show that yes, we can scale this up. And then the very next step after we demonstrate this at the Wyoming Innovation Center is to actually build the refinery. So that's the next step. So
and we wouldn't do that.
We would not build it. No, we would basically have outside industry partners build it. And we would be there to help them if they needed us, but they would be building it.
And one thing I haven't mentioned is this program has generated quite a bit of intellectual property. So patents and several patent applications outstanding and patents issued. The University of Wyoming owns those. So in addition to the revenue that is our ultimate goal, revenue going to the state from incremental coal production, from sales tax, maybe property values, for if something's built in the state, in addition to all that, the university would also receive revenue for the technology that was developed.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
And the inventors too.
Yeah. Correct. That's true.
So Trina, tell me a little bit about you. For example, what's your favorite place to visit in Wyoming?
Okay, so that's a really difficult question because
it's tough.
To me, I like wildlife, and so anywhere I can see a lot of wildlife is a great place. So I can't really pick one. I just really like to observe the wildlife and just see, that's, I can't really pick one, but yeah.
Okay, so what's your favorite trip in Wyoming you took in the last year then?
Well, I like Sheridan because it's beautiful, but I also really like Devil's Tower, so that's another one I really like. So those are hard.
So many fun places, and I tell you what, wildlife is everywhere here in Wyoming. When I go to the gym in the morning, I have to be careful.
I know
not to drive too fast around the corner because you never know what's around that corner.
I know.
Often it's some pronghorn.
Me too. Yep, I gotcha.
What's one thing you'd like folks to know about you?
Okay, so Halloween's my favorite holiday.
Oh yeah,
absolutely, and I love Mexican food.
Oh,
my favorite food.
Do you have a favorite restaurant here in Laramie?
Well, they just opened Chipotle, so yeah.
Chipotle. Okay, well,
I love Chipotle.
I'm very excited about that opening. But.
Me too. I love it. It's now. Is it the best? I don't know. I like Corona Village too.
Yeah,
I really like Corona Village.
We actually, for the size of Laramie, we have some really great options.
Yes, Sweet Melissa's is the best though.
Okay, and we're not endorsing anything. So.
No, we're not endorsing anything.
I think the one thing that we haven't said that we should say is just to acknowledge that the state of Wyoming has been incredibly supportive of the research program that you mentioned.
Yes.
We have some funding from our industry partners. So Arch invested, Peabody has invested at a really substantial amount, and we have a little bit from the Department of Energy, but the bulk of the work we're doing it's for Wyoming, and the governor and the legislature have stepped up and supported this work, and we wouldn't have been able to get it done without them.
That's correct. I fully agree with that. The fact that on the federal level we don't have any coal funding moving forward is a big thing that Wyoming is helping us keep this alive and going. And I think it's really gonna be a game changer.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about working here at the School of Energy Resources?
Oh, I like working with my team.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
I like working with everybody, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Holly.
We're done.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Energy Frontier, the Wyoming Landscape, the podcast that highlights the School of Energy Resources at the University of Wyoming. You can expect a new episode of Energy Frontier every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. See you next time.